Thank you all. If you're just joining, we ask that you put your name and where you're from in the chat. Okay. And so I already mentioned, I'm Alex. I'm joined by the director, Rebecca Hazelton, and our associate director of policy, Micah Richardson, who will be leading us through this wonderful training and be all of your resource throughout the session. Oh, I guess we can get into that next slide.
Is it not moving? Shoot, sorry, second here.
Oh, you're great.
Here's us.
Okay, so yes, that is us. We are the Wyoming Women's Foundation. Becca will talk about us a little bit more in a second. And many of you received session survival training kits. So we sent out little notebooks and sticky notes and pens and all kinds of goodies. We also included some wonderful guides on how a bill becomes a law and civility recommendations that we will review later in the training. So does anybody have any feedback on those kits? If you didn't get one, be sure to become a power advocate so that we can send you some in the future.
And we will be sharing the links to those materials. So if you didn't get one in the mail, you'll still get that. You'll get access to those materials pretty soon here.
Yes, absolutely.
A big shout out to Alex for putting all of those together.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. It's been a team effort for sure. The map is, a wonderful piece that we had some help creating from the lovely Marissa Carpio. I'm sure many of you know. Okay. Well, I think that I'm going to pass it over to Becca and she will get us going on who we are and then pass it over to Micah. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you so much, Alex. And thank you all for being here. What a great turnout. I'm really just impressed that so many people are taking time out of their day on a Friday to learn a little bit more about how to engage with the legislature. And so I'll just kick it off by saying that we are the Wyoming Women's Foundation. We are a fund at the Wyoming Community Foundation, and our mission is to invest in the economic self-sufficiency of women and opportunities for girls in Wyoming. We have a bunch of board members and former board members that I think are on the call, so give a wave. We have a volunteer board that comes from across the state, and they advise us on our work that includes advocacy, grant making, and fundraising. So we are located in Laramie. The three of us staff are here. The board members are across the state, as I said. And we will be having a presence in Cheyenne as well. And so we're excited to be part of this and that you guys are all here to learn a little bit more about what's going to happen this session. So, all right. So I talked about our grant making and our fundraising and our advocacy. So you guys are obviously familiar with our advocacy. The fundraising we do is for our operations as well as to fund our grant making. In our grant making, we do once a year. That application will open in March and it will close in May. So if you are with a nonprofit, we make grants to other nonprofits in the state that are helping to fulfill our mission. So definitely tune in March if you're interested in applying for a grant. We'd love to hear from you. And with that, I will turn it over to Micah, our Associate Director of Policy, for the bulk of this session. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. As Becca and Alex said, just thanks so much for being here. We are thrilled with how many folks are interested in what's coming up in session and want to get involved. So thanks a ton for joining us. I encourage you, we know it's lunchtime, so feel free to turn on your camera and you can eat. But if you're not comfortable, it's okay, but feel free to just get in here and chat with folks and let us see your faces if you're comfortable. We'd love to see yours. So anyway, I am Micah. And going to go through kind of what we're about and what we'll be looking at here over session. And so please feel free to ask questions along the way if you have them. So the Wyoming Women's Foundation has 5 key advocacy areas or issues that we focus on. The first is education. And broadly, that means making sure that girls graduate from high school, that women can access and afford post-secondary or continuing education, so any education beyond high school, and that girls have access to opportunities outside of public school hours, so the out-of-school time, after-school mentoring, STEM, that sort of thing. Next is healthcare. So making sure that women who can and want or need to work have the health and wellness to attain and keep employment, and that women and their babies and children have access to healthcare, and this includes mental health care and reproductive health care, so all of those things. And then representation, that the gender of our elected and appointed officials in our statewide leadership look like the rest of the population. So we've got some work to do there, but something we're focused on. Childcare and workplace policies, again, that families have access to affordable and high quality education, to high quality childcare, sorry, and that the that workplace policies are flexible enough to kind of think about realistic strategies for women to work. And then lastly, income and asset development, so that women earn self-sufficient wages and that they are able to build assets over the course of their lifetime to secure, that time in retirement, to make sure that they're a-okay as we age. For our agenda for today, we are going to talk about how a budget session is a little different from a general session. We're going to go through the process of how a bill becomes a law. We're going to navigate our website and the WYWF website, and then do a little bit of time talking about just some of the bills that we're tracking, and then thinking about how we remain collected, engaged, calm, mindful as we go through this session. So any questions yet? All right. I'm going to keep on keeping on. So our main takeaways. We hope to have a general understanding of the legislative process. You may be complete whizzes by the time we're done with this, or that's what our goal is, but if you at least have a sense of how things work their way through the session, that's going to be where we hope you land. And some of you attending this already know the ins and outs of all of this, so if you have insights along the way, if I missed something, we would love to hear from you. That you know how to find the resources you need. So where do you learn about bills? Who do you need to talk to? Where are all those details? We hope you are able to look at a few bills and decide if you think they're important to you and how you might become an advocate and reach out to our decision makers. And then lastly, we hope you walk away knowing a little bit more about how you might manage stress during the legislative session. It can get stressful, it's fast-paced, all of those sorts of things. And so we hope you walk away with some helpful tips there as well. So first, this is the roadmap that some of you should have seen in your kit. And if you don't have it, Alex is going to put a link in the chat about how a bill becomes a law in the Wyoming legislature. And the first thing we need to note is that this is a budget session. And so we need 2/3 vote for any bill, except for the budget bills, to go through the process to become a law. So first thing, a bill is going to be drafted either by committee. So during the interim, the committees get together, they talk about a lot of stuff, they dive in, they think about things that they could be improved or that need changed. And a bill works with the Legislative Service Office to draft, or a committee, sorry, works with the Legislative Service Office to draft a bill. The other way that bills can come forward are by individuals or group of individuals being our legislators or groups of legislators who draft a bill. Often the LSO will help those folks as well, but that is how they kind of come to fruition. Once the bill is drafted, there are, I should also note that those committees, that there are 12 parallel committees. So 12 in the House and 12 in the Senate who are working on these bills and working during the interim, and often they'll come together. All right, so next of this, once the bill is drafted, it goes to the majority leader in either the House or the Senate. And for a budget session, the majority leader will do the first reading, which means it's introduced. So when you go to the website, it will say introduced. At that point, that is where we have to get that 2/3 vote. And so in the Senate, that is 21 people being in favor of a bill passing through. And in the House, it's 41 people in favor. So you've got to have that 2/3 vote to pass it through. So next, the majority leader, oops, sorry about that. The majority leader will then assign the bill to one of the committees. And and that will stay in the Committee of Origin. And so that will go to the committee. They will decide to approve that bill. They will make changes to that bill, or they will send it back as is. Once that has happened, and I should also note that in that committee discussion, that is when folks have the opportunity to talk about bills, to provide input, expert testimony comes in. You as a citizen can come in at that point as well and provide testimony. So that's the area and the time that those bills really get worked and are made amendments to, that sort of thing. Okay, so if they don't make any changes, that bill goes back to the committee as a whole, which is the acronym for that is COW, which is a great acronym. But anyway, so it goes back to the committee as a whole, and so then it will kind of move on. So then we will, once the bill has been worked and it goes back, it will go back into the general file. And when it's in general file, it means it's just kind of being put on a waiting list, and the majority floor leader will decide if it is going to be heard or not at that time. And so this is important because there are hundreds of bills that are being looked at and read, and that majority floor leader has a lot of power in the fact that they can put some bills up front and make sure they get heard. But if time runs out, that bill can just die because it will have never been heard. So that is something to keep in mind. If it's continuing to wait and we're getting toward the end of session, that could spell trouble for a bill. So just keep that in mind. Let's see. So then once it has been brought to the committee as a whole and the majority leader has brought it forth, it will then get a second and a third reading. So at each of the readings, there can be amendments that are made. There can be votes on the bill. If at any point in time, and I should also note that only at introduction does it need that 2/3 vote. So once it's in one of the committees, it no longer needs the 2/3 vote. It only needs majority vote to get back. So hope you're all following here. Can go through second and third reading. At any of those points, it can die. If it passes, though, it's going to go back to the committee as a whole. All right. Once it is at the committee of the whole, as we talked about, so once it is there, then it gets voted on. If it is passed with just a simple majority, it will then go to be looked at with both chambers to move forward and then finish out that process. Any questions on that? Any insights? Anything that I missed from some of you folks who have been doing this for a long time that you want to clarify or add some additional thoughts? All right. It's a process, but I think once you're in it, you start to get the rhythm of it all. So, all right. So knowing how the bill works, then the Women's Foundation does our own bill tracking. And so I'm going to show you real quick what that looks like on our side of things. So this is the Wyoming Women's Foundation website. And up here at Advocate, if you click on Key Issues and Bills, This will take you to our advocacy page, our bill tracking page. And up top here, it shows you our 5 priority areas. And if you click on those, it will kind of dive into what those areas look like and the kind of details of it. If you scroll down, you will see the bills that we are tracking. We have it broken up into the categories, and you can see that we support and oppose some of those bills. And we also have a section down at the bottom where we are watching bills. So here's a whole section of bills that we're watching. I will also note we are not fully up to date on this. I am continuing to update these bills as they come in. So continue to watch this page, and we'll keep updating as we go. Some of the bills that I'd like to highlight, just generally, there are a whole slew of property tax bills that are out there this year. And, you know, property tax bills are something we're watching closely. One, because our property taxes are what we use to pay for education in Wyoming. And while it is constitutionally mandated that our education must be paid for, if it's not coming from our property taxes, it has to come from somewhere. So, you know, we really want to make sure we're being thoughtful about which property tax bills are going through and how that impacts things. These property taxes also impact things like our community colleges and our senior centers, both of which are really important to women in Wyoming. We know the majority of attendees at community colleges are women, as are those in our senior centers. So we're watching those bills pretty closely. I will also share that generally the Women's Foundation is in support of any bill that is really taking care of those who need it most. So for example, we are supporting HB4. That is the property tax bill that is based on your income level. And so it's looking at poverty level and folks who really could use that support, and it might have some big impact on them. But the impact to our services at the local level are smaller. And as we learn more, we have some in the watch yet. As we learn more, or if they become adapted, we might change our stance on some of these, but that's generally what we're looking at there. A couple of other bills that we are looking at. There is, let's see, healthcare here. This prior authorization regulations bill. So this is a bill that basically states that insurance companies need to show what the prior authorization requirements are. You need to be able to easily see them on their website. You need to be able to find this information before you go into your doctor's appointment. As we know, this is important to healthcare generally, but also in thinking about self-sufficiency. And if you don't know what you're getting into, how big a medical bill can hit you and what that can look like. We're watching that one. We don't have any representation bills just yet, but hoping we'll get some things up there. A couple of other ones that I want to point out, the developmental preschool funding bill. So I should also kind of backtrack just a little bit. Within the budget, some of these things are there already. So for example, the developmental preschool funding bill has already been written into the budget as part of DFS. They are required to put that amount in. This bill was created in the case that that funding gets cut within the budget bill. This will then become kind of a backup to that. And this is important to us because our developmental preschools are, a couple of them have closed around the state, and some of them are really on the not doing well financially. And that is because the amount per child that our developmental preschools receive has not been raised for a while. And so this raises that amount that the developmental preschools would be getting per child to ensure that those supports are there for our communities. These preschools are important not just for childcare, but they really tackle issues and provide supports for kiddos who may have developmental disabilities. So they're really important to our communities. There's also an interesting bill that is expanding the zoning code so that residential properties can be used for childcare. As we know, there's a shortage of childcare providers in the state, and so this is one interesting way that we could kind of address that problem. And then I'll just hit maybe one more additional one. So the Wyoming Teacher Shortage Loan Repayment Program. This bill, HB 167, simply makes updates to the type of teachers who can receive loan repayment assistance. So it opens up to teachers broadly, which we think is great. So this is, let's go ahead and click on this. We were going to learn more information about this bill. Shows that we support this bill, gives a summary, and then tells why it matters, tells who the sponsors are. And then if you scroll down just a little bit, this will, I think this linked to last year's bill. I apologize. I'm going to go back here. Let's do this on this side. I'll get rid of that one. You guys are my face here. All right, so here we go. This will show latest action. So right now, not much is happening, right? And then this will show the status as it moves along. And you can see here that we have the link to the bill itself. And so now we're going to explore the legislative website, which is just really slick and handy, I think. And so we'll do a little bit of exploration here. So when you look at this page, this takes you to the bill itself. If you come to the digest, this is that kind of the short summary. Sometimes it's really helpful in the description that it provides. Other times I look at it and I think this is not really telling me much. So you have to kind of dive your way through it and see what you think on each of them. If you come back to the bill text, it shows you all of the bill text. It shows what they are changing. So for example, we talked about how this is expanding the number of teachers who could access this. So it's taking away special ed, math, science, world language, and broadening it just to a teaching endorsement. Okay. And then you can see here as well what the status is, any amendments that have been made, the fiscal notes, what this would cost the state and where the funding would come from. This is really handy. This portion of things is this really gives insight as to what this would look like broadly for Wyoming's budget. Eventually, the votes will be there. And again, back to that digest. Some other things on the side here, you can see who the main sponsor was and then who the co-sponsors are. And it also shows these in PDF form on this side. Okay. You can, from here, you can, actually, let's go to the home page because then you can kind of see how to navigate a little bit differently. So this is the home page. If you look down at the bottom, these are the things that I use the most. And so if you look down at the bottom, you have the 2024 session bills. You can search the bills, you can find committee bills and session information. So this has all of the bills that are here so far. If you look, you can see, and actually you can also do this. You can search by House bills, and you can see how many House bills there are so far. There are quite a few. So we are at 140, and then some additional. So then if we look at Senate files, far fewer on the Senate side of things, but still a pretty fair number, 81 of those. Okay. If you come up here and change it to 2023, we can explore some of these bills and have a little bit more information about how they, oh, I should also tell you that they can, so let's say last year's bill that there was a big win on. Maybe it's not going to pop up that way. Oh, so that's in the file. Let's choose all bills filed. So this bill, which was a big win, if we go back and look at the votes, it shows it went through labor, appropriations. You can see the whole path that it took. You can see this area that shows the status, shows here clear from the back where it was assigned, shows that it was received for introduction, went through labor, they recommended to do pass, referred to appropriations. So you can watch the whole process of how it moved from the House into the Senate, and then all the way up. So that's really handy to kind of see where things are. It has the fiscal note as well, and then the summary at the end once it has been passed. So that's just one other bit to look at for a pass bill. I'm always actually pretty, I just think they do a great job. This website is pretty easy to navigate, which is nice. Some other things to bring up. So our calendars, you can check out the calendar here. It has a session schedule, which is always nice to keep handy if it loads. Nice to have. And that's just kind of a broad overview of how things will move through. Last day of session, March 8th. Okay. Other things, you can look at your joint and standing committees. So this is important if you're thinking about, that the introduction at the beginning when it's going to these different committees, and, if they say, oh, okay, this is one of these bills is going to go to education, right? And we need to know who are our members in education so that we can reach out to them and share what we think about a bill or learn more information or understand where they might be landing. You are always welcome to reach out to all of these folks. So on the Senate side, you see all the folks here. And then on the House side, we've got them here. If you click on any of these folks' names, it tells you their general information. It shows what other committees they serve on and have served on. You can click here to see all of that. You can see the bills that they have sponsored over the years or even co-sponsored. So we can see here. And then that contact information. And feel free to reach out to, if it's in the committee, to reach out to folks in the committee when a bill is there. And to your own legislator as you're following something and if it moves to the committee as a whole. You wouldn't necessarily reach out to your legislator if they aren't in that committee and it hasn't been moved along. So understanding kind of where those bills are in the process is helpful. All right, so other things to look at here.
Hey, Micah, can I just add something to what you just said?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the best ways I think to follow along with the bills and find out where it is in that process is to join our Power Advocates if you're not already part of it, because it is a really time-consuming process to keep up with what's going on, and things can happen really quickly. And so we will send out alerts when there's something that, it's time to pay attention or time to send out that email to your particular legislator.
All right, thanks, Becca. Yeah, good plug. All right, so we are also already talked about the committee members, but we can also see, you can break it down by senators and search by your county. So if you are in Cook County, you can see who your senator is there, and same for your representatives. There's also this really slick tool here that is Find Your Legislator. Give it a second to load. And you can see at the top that it shows the current Senate districts and the current House districts. So we'll zoom in on this guy. And clearly it's not by county. So you've got to know where you are a little bit here. But it's a slick little map to show how this is For example, Fremont County here, this long stretch is House District 34. So that's also a slick little tool that I think is handy and kind of fun.
Yeah, and you can, if I might add, you can just go ahead and put your address right up there in the corner and it'll find your district for you.
Here. All right, so, and maybe can you do it even by just doing city, so it won't break it down yet, you'd have to give more. This is where we are right now. So it found my location, I'm at work here, which would be 45. All right. Okay. All right, so other fun tools here. So you can see who former members were. So this, I just encourage you to explore this site. There's just a lot of great information and more than I think you might initially find. So in thinking about, when something comes up that's important to you, how you find your legislator and how you find those legislators who are on certain committees. This is a pretty nice way to do it. And, tracking those bills on our site as well. Okay, so let me get back to presenting this guy. All right. Okay. So next question in the chat, if you would type what bill you are most interested in at this point, maybe you're not sure yet, but we would love to see what bills you're following and learn if you want to share why it's important to you. That's great too. Might help give some insight that maybe we aren't even tracking on ours, that maybe you're tracking something else completely. We always like to hear about it. So feel free to pop those in the chat if you've got them.
Yeah, if you're not sure yet, that makes sense. There's so many and
fast.
They've all been coming out recently, so there's still a lot to learn. Yeah. I have another question. If you're not sure about what bills you're looking for, raise your hand or put a little thumbs up if you know who your legislator is. Got a real hands up. I love that. Got some thumbs. Very nice. Very nice.
Nice.
Okay, so what's in the chat? Fiscal Accountability and Transparency in Education, HB 61.
Mm-hmm.
That one's on ours. SF 009. Reproductive Freedom Act, HB 76.
Can you remind us what the SF 009 is, Maggie?
It's the parental rights in the classroom.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got a comment saying that Kathleen now knows who her legislators are.
Nice. That's a win. And one little detail that, I didn't even mention, Alex, that I should have thought about is if a bill starts with SF, that is a Senate file. If it's HB, that's a House bill. So that's the way to kind of recognize where it's coming from and who you need to reach out to at that point too.
Is it only HJ for the joint ones, or do they do SJ as well?
HJ, there are not SJ.
They can do both.
I don't believe. Oh, can you do both? Thank you, Becca. See, there you go.
So if you see a J, then it's a joint bill.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Actually, if it's a J, it is a joint resolution.
Resolution.
Thank you. Thank you. This is why Micah does it.
Great.
So we're seeing quite a few different bills in the chat. And a lot of those are on our list on our website. So that should be helpful. Might be what's going on. And I see Cheryl is at the CDC over there in Cheyenne. Is that right, Cheryl? So if you have an expertise in one of these areas, I think too, we would invite you, if you haven't done this already, to consider testifying when these bills do come through the committee. Because as Micah mentioned earlier, that's the time that the committee can hear from the public. Once it goes to the committee of the whole, the public can't stand up on the floor and talk about it. That's when the legislators will debate it among themselves. So, if you are working in education or, in one of these CDCs, you might be a good candidate to come down to the legislature and testify. Has anyone done that before?
Oh, that would be good. Has anyone done that? Good to know.
Seeing a couple nods.
Yeah,
Maggie, yeah.
great.
Great. And you can also do it online. I will add, because I know that some of you are not close to Cheyenne, right? So there's a whole process for joining over Zoom, which is really nice. Obviously, like many things since the pandemic, that has become much more available to us.
Yeah. I'll also say that it is great to have expert testimony, but it's also great if you have just been impacted by this. So if you have a child who has really benefited from the child development centers, hearing how important those centers are to you, just from someone who is not like a lobbyist, who doesn't work in the field, I think that carries a lot of weight. Just hearing from the constituents is nice. If you can directly speak to the issue and the matter, I think sometimes that can carry as much weight as the experts even. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if they're hearing from a variety of folks around the state, different constituents in different districts. I think that's really helpful too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that we would let you know in our Power Advocate Action Alerts. So we'll have information on opportunities to testify that are coming up and ones that we really are encouraging you to participate in.
Yeah. All right. So one of our goals for this was to be thinking about how you get through the session calmly, as calm as you can, perhaps, by managing stress and being mindful. I think that this is a good thing to think about. We can get kind of wrapped up in the whole process, and so I put this slide here because while it isn't necessarily speaking completely of mindfulness, I think that being civil and fostering civility can go a long way toward managing your stress. And being kind and breathing through things and thinking about the person that you're speaking in front of, would you talk to them in the way that the same way if your child was there or if your parents were there watching you, that kind of thing, to remember to just stay calm, that it really does help with the mental health and stress side of things. So when we're thinking about fostering civility, you should have gotten this card in your pack as well. So we encourage you to talk to the people, like you said, the way that you would hope to be spoken to, that you get to know the issues and your legislators. Find out who they are, find out a little bit about them. Practice legislative etiquette, so calling them by senator or representative or speaker, whatever that might look like, even if you know them well. Identify yourself as a constituent or, from whatever area you might be coming from. Let them know who you are and tell them your interest. They have, as we just saw, hundreds of bills in front of them, and things are moving very quickly. The budget session is 20 days. And so this is a very, very, very fast process. So keeping it short and relevant and personal is great. And making sure that you offer appreciation. Even if you don't agree with someone, this is a lot of work. And so just being respectful and grateful for the work that they're putting into it, and being just courteous and kind, I think it just goes quite a long way when we're doing anything in our lives, but especially when we are involved at the legislative level, when we think about bills that are truly going to impact our communities, we can really feel passionately about them. And so making sure we remember to think about the human who's in front of us as well. We also want to take some actual practice time for mindfulness. And if you are like me, I say that I want to practice my mindfulness, and then I say, but I don't really have time, and so I'm going to put it on the bottom of my to-do list. But Flitner Strategies, who is a really great resource, they work with businesses, they've worked with the state. They really try to emphasize, like, it doesn't take a lot, just a few minutes of your time to be mindful and give yourself a little time to breathe and relax and think about purposefully something, and they provided these 4 cards in your package. And so I would love for you all to choose one of these cards, and we are going to take just 1 minute. And the reason we are going to take just 1 minute is because sometimes 5 minutes is too much. So we're going to start small, just like Flitner Strategy says. We're going to do like a little baby bite. And so I'd like you to take 1 minute and read one of these cards and just quietly think through the questions that they ask, and then I will bring us back in a minute. Okay, that's it, that's a minute. You made it. Oh, and I've got y'all up here. Let me move you, sorry. There we go. Hopefully, were you even able to read those with your faces all on the screen? Okay. Anybody want to reflect on how that felt, or did it feel worthwhile to just take that small amount of time? I think it is for me. I need to remember even just small pieces can help me kind of breathe and think through things. So we'll thank Flitner for sharing that information with us.
Yeah, and I can say that, yeah, sometimes it just gets emotional, when people feel really differently about the issues, and it can be kind of hard. So I think this is a great tool for all of us to use, and we do thank Flitner Strategies for providing these. Someone came to me and said, I think I got 4 business cards for Sarah Flitner. And they they do have that. Flip them over if you thought you got 4 business cards. They do all have her contact information on them, but they're each a really helpful thing to keep in mind, I think.
Yeah. All right. So next, a plug to become a power advocate. We've got a QR code there if you want to scan that with your phone if you are not already a power advocate. Sarah or Alex and Becca already mentioned some of the things that you, like the perks you receive to become a power advocate, but we will provide you more updates throughout session. You'll get updated sooner on some of these kind of community conversations and training sessions that we host. We try to make them relevant to y'all. We'll reach out to you for feedback as to what you might want to discuss as part of our community conversations. And so we'd love for you to join us and be a part of this. You can be a power advocate who just watches the bills as they come through. You can kind of gear up a little bit more and do outreach to folks, talk to your community members. We just appreciate you participating and really participating in the process. Just being more engaged in any of these bills that are important to you is great. We are focused on women and girls, but get engaged and voice what you feel is important along the way. We hope that what we provide kind of narrows down some of the bills that are out there. When there are 300 bills, 200 bills, it's hard for each of us to just sift through all of those. So hopefully we can help with that.
I would just add too, Micah, that power advocates also get together in person sometimes. So when we travel around the state for other reasons, we'll sometimes host gatherings, kind of a social gathering, and chat with you all about what's going on in your community, what your biggest issues are. So if you are someone that would like to get that going in your community, you'd like us to come visit, let us know. You can reach out to us, put something in the chat, or send us an email. And we'd love to come visit and have, some of your friends that maybe weren't able to join us today join us and learn a little bit more about what we're doing. We usually do those in the summer when the session's not going on.
And we can travel on the roads.
Right.
Other minor detail. All right, so upcoming, there are some other opportunities for you to continue to get involved. So ESPC is hosting its SHAPE training February 19th. And they are, I think Alex is going to plug that into the chat box. But there are opportunities, some virtual and some in-person opportunities around the state on February 19th. So be sure to check those out. Leap into Leadership will be hosting their training as well. And I'm sorry, I didn't put the dates on there. I believe it's February 21st, 22nd, 23rd. I will double check that, but Alex is going to plug that one into the chat also. So you can click on that, and if I told you the wrong dates, you can see the right dates there. So we encourage you to participate in those as well. And then lastly, just want to say thank you. We sure appreciate you taking the time. This is your lunch hour. You chose to join us, and we just feel so grateful for that, and would love your feedback along the way. Call, email. If you have questions, ask questions.